Sometimes people ask me, Dieter, how long does it take to define my meaning? Must be very difficult. And I always tell them 5 to 10 minutes. And they, what? Are you kidding? We are made believe very often that the purpose must be something big, something earth-shattering. And I do not agree with this at all anymore. The really sad thing is that young people, when you talk to them, younger than 30, they're saying, yes, make peace and all that stuff. Then they get married or they have kids, and all of a sudden, most of them become very pragmatic until something really goes wrong. And then people are coming and saying, this can't be everything to life. There are always people who come and say to me, Dieter, I don't find anyone who loves me. And then I'm always asking them, do you love yourself? And in 99% of the cases, the answer is silence, not even no, silence.
Salam, hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Doesn't matter what time you're watching this. Welcome back to Learning Living with me, Ali. And I'm very, very excited today that we have a guest that I've been waiting personally to have this conversation for quite a while, quite a long time. All the way from Austria. He's a modern elder, a meaning counselor. Which we're going to talk what is a meaning counselor. His mission is to help people to find their purpose in life. So something that I personally is very much feel I can very much get connected and relate to. And last time I talked with him, I learned so much, and I cannot wait to learn more. He's also a father, a grandfather. So, Dieter, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, Artie. My pleasure. So far, so good. Thank you.
So far, so good, and hopefully it's going to get even better. Thank you again for coming to this podcast. I really appreciate you for taking your time. So because you have a limited time, I know you're busy, so I want to jump straight ahead if you don't mind. Just from the very beginning, modern elder meaning counselor. Can you explain what is that, and why do you use that to explain what you do?
Okay. Well, since more than 40 years now, I'm helping people to find their meaning and their purpose in life. And a lot of people then say to me, "Oh, you're a life coach," and I never liked the term coach because there are much too many coaches or pretend to be coaches. Sometimes I'm saying it's almost as bad as if you introduce yourself as selling insurances. If you say I'm a coach. So I always preferred to have a different label if needed. And since I'm 69 years old, I thought, okay, why not have it a mixture, holistic mixture of modern and being elder? So it's modern elder. But of course, some people still need to categorize. And when they say, okay, so what does it mean exactly? Then I'm saying, okay, it's meaning counselor, meaning helping people to find the meaning or the purpose in life and how to live it. But if possible, without a label, which is difficult for most people, unfortunately.
And when you say helping people to also find meaning in their life, I know you've also met one of my favorite authors, Viktor Frankl, all the way back. It was like 40 something years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, actually, he was the one who brought me on this road, so to speak. I started at the age of 26, 27, what you would call nowadays a coach for personal development. At the time, this term didn't exist. Time management, communication skills, and team building and stuff like this. But then, after 2-3 years, some clients were coming in saying, "Dieter, we like what you're doing, but can't you go a little bit deeper?" And then by coincidence, and I don't believe in coincidences, I met Viktor Frankl. I've heard him giving a lecture before as a student. I didn't understand any word. And then I met him again, and he took me a little bit under his wings. And he was saying, well, why don't you help your clients to find an answer to the basic question, why are you really here on this planet in non-material terms, besides to make money, besides to make career, get recognition, and maybe raise children? Why are you really, 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 like the Spice Girls? Why are you really, really, really here on this planet? So this was the point of time when I decided that's it. So ever since, I'm not doing anything else than following Viktor Frankl's footsteps, in a way, helping people to find the purpose and how to live it.
How was it? Like how was he as a person? I mean, and how did he? I mean, if you reflect back, how did he able to influence you to go to his footsteps as well?
To the outside, he was extremely dynamic, outspoken, straight to the point, and deep and profound. When you were talking with him in a smaller circle, he was sometimes, well, quite a few times actually, more philosophical and even spiritually, you might say. But with what he has experienced in the concentration camp and the way how he survived, his personality was really strong, sometimes even a little bit too strong, so to speak. But it was really this absolute belief in you as a human being. You're more than you think you are, and you can, and you not only can, but you maybe have to find a meaning in your life if you really want to live a life you love. And I mean, he found his meaning in his life in the concentration camp, which is a definitely unusual place. And actually, what few people know, he had two meanings. And one meaning was, or one purpose was to see his wife again. He didn't know until he came back after the concentration camp that she has been killed. But this kept him alive. And the other thing was to tell people in the future not to do the same mistakes as the Germans were doing. He was always dreaming, imagining himself to be in a warm university lecture hall and giving a lecture to students and saying, don't do this, rather do this and this. And especially, for instance, to imagine himself to be in a warm lecture hall kept him also alive physically, because it was bloody cold in the concentration camp. So fascinating personality. And if I may do some advertising for him, so to speak, there are two things. One is, and you have read the book as well, Man's Search for Meaning. And just to give one example about the book, in Washington, D.C., in the Library of the Congress, they have a list of the 100 most influential books for American history. Number one is the Bible, which is not a surprise for the United States. But his book, Man's Search for Meaning, is number 7 out of 100 books. Very thin and very profound, as you know. And the other thing is, if anyone of the listeners or you yourself already ever come to Vienna, I strongly recommend to go to the Viktor Frankl Museum, which is his former practice, actually. It's very small. It's nothing like a classical museum. It's very interactive. It's absolutely, actually, it's in German and in English. So everyone can really do it. So strongly recommend it.
And what did you learn the most from him? Maybe things that you learned that from your experience with him, from your interaction with him, that wasn't in any of his books.
That's a good question. That wasn't in any of his books or in the way he was saying. Well, as I was mentioning before, in a smaller circle, he also was rather philosophical, almost spiritual. And there was something which he probably, without intending it, supported in my development, and I only became aware of it afterwards. Let me explain what I mean. My philosophy nowadays is that in my life, at least, there are 3 phases of development. The first phase I call having, the second phase I call doing, and the third phase I call being. Having, doing, being. Having means people believe if I have stuff, or relationships for this matter, then I will be happy. Fewer people come to the second phase, which is doing something hopefully meaningful. And that's Viktor Frankl. If I do something hopefully meaningful, then I will be happy. And even fewer people come to the third phase, which is simply being in the now. And being in the now, for me, means 3 things. First, not to be driven by woundings from the past. Second, not to be driven by the need to fulfill expectations of other people in the present. And third, not to be driven by fears about the future. Nothing about the past, nothing about the present, no fears about the future. I have a client in India. When I told him this for the first time, he said, Dieter, it helps to believe in reincarnation because in this lifetime we will never get there. And I agree that the journey is the goal. But to come back to your question. So my parents, especially my mother, was always very spiritual. So I think I was on the journey already from having to being. And I'm still on this journey, obviously. And I was missing the stepping stone. And this was Viktor Frankl with the purpose. But at the same time, he also was saying purpose is what is missing for most people, but it's not the last thing. The last thing then is really to come to a spiritual realm, to come to a he didn't say religious. I mean, it was quite interesting to mention this as well. He was Jewish, and his wife, Ellie, who is still alive, by the way, 95, 96 years old. She is a Christian. So it's also, he was open to this, but he was saying it should be a spiritual journey. Purpose is an extremely important stepping stone.
And at that time, can you share like your decision-making process? Like, okay, you listen to him, you've learned from him, and it influenced you in a certain way. But correct me if I'm wrong. I think at that time, that's not what you're doing. Like, that's not what you're working on. That's not what you do as a career. But then you made the decision somewhere that this is what I want to be focusing on from now on, he said. So
I'm not sure if you can call it a real decision. I think it was more going with the flow. I mean, I started my career, as I was saying, as a coach, and I was mainly working in companies and for companies, okay? And there was all about goal setting. And I already had the feeling, and I emphasized the feeling, okay, the goals is okay, but the majority of the goals were material goals, and then people achieved the goal, and then they said, okay, what's the next goal? It always has to be bigger, you know, like climbing the next higher mountain. And I always had the feeling this doesn't fit. And then in a way it was Frankl then who was saying, okay, so why do you want to climb the mountain in the first place? What is the what for, the why behind it, in non-material terms, So, and then I started to, when I had especially either one-to-one sessions with managers or so, or even keynotes with companies, I started to add a little bit this about the why, the question why. And then I don't remember from whom I learned this, but I started to use a question, for instance, when I was giving a keynote in a company, which was about a management topic normally. And the question was asking the people at the beginning, do you want to live the next 10 years like the last 2 years? Yes or no? If yes, go home. If no, maybe we have to talk something about it. And the reaction was unbelievable. I mean, in this 40 years, for sure, there have been some people leaving, no question about this, but 99% never left. And you could see, as a speaker like me, in the audience, people were folding their arms and saying no. And there were even some people saying, not even 2 years in this company. And so this all were indicators for me to shift a little bit away from purely profit-oriented, purely material stuff, even moving away from goals and achieving goals to the question why. So long story short, it was a process, so to speak. It was not necessarily a decision I was taking, okay, from tomorrow on I'll do it differently. It was an evolution, a process. And nowadays, I'm even more and more into the third area, into the spiritual area, helping people who say, okay, what is this spirituality at all? So it's an ongoing process. That was a short answer to your long question.
Oh, no. It's I have more questions to ask, but this is so fascinating, and it's a very powerful question as well. Like, I'm just picturing you like in this room full of people and opening with that kind of question. Yeah, wow.
Without presenting myself, you know, without getting introduced. four, 500, whatever people, and all like in German-speaking Europe, a banker style with three-piece suit, and then you start this. The next 2 hours is about the question: do you want to live the next 10 years like this? And boom.
Wow.
It's sad in a way. It's sad in a way, but I also have the feeling over these 40 plus years, there's a change going on. Not very fast, but more. I mean, I'm always saying, if you're talking with people one-to-one, and especially if you do it the Austrian way, which is with a glass of something, or 2 glasses of something, then as it's saying in Latin, in vino veritas, in the wine you have the truth, people are opening up. Then they're saying, well, yeah, it's not exactly what I always thought as a young person, how my life is developing, but I can't do anything, or they don't know what to do about it. And this is exactly the challenge. We never learn about this inner world, or about the purpose, even in school. We learn facts and figures. Paris is the capital of France, and 2 + 2 is 4, but we never learn about the inner stuff, our fears, our blocks, our why. So this is where there is a trend nowadays to say, okay, maybe I should, or we should go a little bit into this area as well.
Why do you think it's important, let's say, for people to find meaning and to find purpose in their life? I mean, let's say if there are people who are like, hey, my life is fine right now, and I don't know what my life is for, but I'm okay. Why should I, bother do all of that, for example?
That's perfectly fine. I'm always saying, because people ask it very often, and they even asked me it in the old days when I still was focusing on goals. Do I really need a goal? Do I really need a purpose or meaning, or what is it? And I always say, no, they don't need. But then you must never complain about how your life is developing. It's perfectly fine not to have a meaning, not to have a purpose, not to have goals, provided, by the way, you don't harm anyone else. That's another condition. But you never must complain then about the development of your life. If there's something to complain, you maybe have to go a little bit inside yourself, and that's something we never learn. As I was saying, go inside yourself and say, okay, what is it which makes me unbalanced or even unhappy sometimes, and what is really important for me in my life? And then it more or less automatically comes to the question, why am I, or what for am I really here on this planet?
And what is the answer to that? Like, I mean, from your perspective, from your experience, can the answer be different from one person to another, or it's the same for everyone?
You mean the meaning, the purpose?
Yeah, like what am I here for? That question.
Oh, the answer is completely different for everyone. I mean, you can't go to this question from 2 perspectives. One is from the more universal perspective, and one is from the individual perspective. And from the universal perspective, why does the universe exist? What for does the universe? There, maybe you come to an answer which has different words, but at the end of the day, it's the same thing. In an individual perspective, everyone has his or her different answers, and that's perfectly fine. And by the way, that's a good point you're bringing up, because nowadays, as I was saying just before, more and more people are not only asking about the question for the individual purpose, but also what is life for? What is the universe for? If you want to, I can give an example about this if you want later.
Right, please.
Okay. Well, the example I'm always giving is, imagine the ocean, and imagine 2 waves. Yeah, the ocean and 2 waves coming closer to the beach, and one wave shouting to the other wave, "My goodness, we're going to crash, we're going to die," and the other wave responding, "You're stupid. You're part of the ocean. You cannot die." We are all waves, but at the same part, we are part of the ocean, but we completely forgot it. So the wave is saying, "Okay, what is my individual purpose?" But more and more people are coming into this, you might call it spiritual realm, and saying, okay, what is the oceanic? And then you can have whatever label, oceanic or divine or love or consciousness. They're all, or Taoism, they're all labels. But this is the difference. So coming back to your question, individually, everyone has a different purpose.
But at the same time, like, this reminds me of, I'm sure you know this saying, everything happens for a reason, right?
Uh-huh.
But then, when I read that statement, that sentence, I also thought, hey, okay, everything happens for a reason, and I am part of everything.
Exactly.
So, so it means I happen for a reason, right? Uh, and
Well,
then,
okay. This is
and I
arguing from
continue.
a wave perspective.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
we
yeah.
we think there must be a reason, but maybe from the universe perspective,
Mhm.
it would be laughing and saying, "Well, you stupid little wave. The universe, we don't have a why. It could be. It could be. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm always saying in this oceanic approach or whatever you want to label it,
Yeah, yeah.
there will be so many things we even cannot imagine. We even
Mhm.
cannot imagine. So, and of course, because of our limited capacity as a human being, we are using our own measurements. Well, if I like the logic is the best example. We're saying everything has to be logic. Come on, the universe is not logic. I mean, how do you explain eternity or infinity with logical terms? Our brain cannot understand it. So it's difficult to understand. Yes, I have to have a purpose or meaning. And by the way, there's a difference for me between purpose and meaning. The universe does not have to have a meaning. Yes, the universe is infinite. The universe is eternal. So how we cannot understand, in my opinion, we cannot understand it with our limited senses.
Mhm. And you mentioned earlier the difference between purpose and meaning. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. uh, I'm always saying we have two purposes, just to shock people and to tell them it's even more complicated than they thought. We have what I call the outer purpose, and we have the inner purpose. And to make a distinction, I'm always calling it the inner meaning. Inner meaning and outer purpose. Outer purpose is, as the name says, in regard to the outside world. And this is what we usually think about when we talk about purpose. But I'm claiming that at the end of the day, we have to find first and foremost a question: what is my inner meaning? And my inner meaning, and I can give you an example in a second. My inner meaning is usually very abstract, philosophical, maybe even spiritual, and it's absolutely only about myself, not in an egoistic way, but in an egocentric way. Let me give an example. It could be, well, let me give a personal example. For me, it is three or fourfold. It is to experience oneness, to find inner peace and inner harmony, and to be kind to myself. So
That's the
it's
inner
complete.
meaning.
That's the inner meaning, because I claim only if you have this frame of what is your inner meaning, you will be able to define your proper outer purpose. Because what happens so often is that, especially in our Western societies, we are made believe that the outer purpose must be something big, something earth-shattering. So this already makes it very difficult to find something which is really fulfilling. And then, because people believe I have to get rid of hunger in the world, or I have to become another Mother Teresa, or whatever it is. But then the problem is that subconsciously,
Mhm.
subconsciously, most of the time, it is not for the thing itself in the outer purpose. It is to get what most of us miss very much since childhood, which is love. Simply love, as we almost all of us, never got it enough from our parents. I give you one or two examples so you know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah.
Some 30 years ago, I was doing a workshop in a Swiss company. It was for the board of directors, 7 men, and it was a weekend workshop. And in this workshop, I gave them a question to answer for themselves. And the question was, and they were all 55 and older, all members of the board of directors. And the question was, from what you have achieved in your life, who should see your success? And then they were writing it down on a piece of paper. And then in the coffee break and at dinner, they came to me one to share with me their unique, individual, personal answer. But you know what
Mm.
happened? Five out of the 7 men told me they have been writing down their father. Even so, he maybe already has been dead for many years, but they've been working 30, 40 years, 70, 80, 90 hours a week, heart attack, divorce, no time for children, only to be able to go to daddy and to say, look, daddy, what I've achieved. I'm a good boy, right? And if daddy is not alive anymore, to say, he would have been so proud if he still would have been around. Completely driven the whole life, subconsciously. But this doesn't start at the age of 50 or something. This starts much earlier. Some 8 years ago, I was invited to a startup conference, and there was a competition. I was in the jury, and the two young guys, 24, 25, got the first prize for an app for elderly people. Don't ask me technical details, no idea. Anyway, so afterwards, one of the two stood up and said he's so happy, so proud at such a young age, do something meaningful for society to help elderly people, and yada, yada, yada. Afterwards, we had dinner together in a small circle, some glasses of wine, and then he stood up again and said, now it would be really nice if a multinational company would show up and buy the whole stuff for 1 or 2 millions. But this was only the beginning. After some more glasses of wine, he said, and then hopefully, finally, my father will come and say, son, I'm so proud of you. They were doing something good for society, no question about this, but deep down, they were doing it subconsciously to get feedback, to get validation, to get love. And that's perfectly okay, don't get me wrong. I only have to be aware of it. So this is why I'm saying, long story short again, I only can define, in my philosophy, the outer purpose properly if I know my inner meaning, what is really important to me, not in an egoistic way, in an egocentric way. And then I can say, okay, do I really do it for other people, or am I also doing it for myself, which is okay, but I have to be aware of it. So this is why I distinguish between inner meaning as the starting point, creating the frame, so to speak, and then the purpose. So if someone is asking me, Dieter, what is your purpose in life? It depends if I know the person or not. Sometimes I give the outer version saying I help people to find the purpose in life, how to live it. Or if it's a more private environment, I say, well, I'm really working or developing myself to experience oneness and to find inner peace and harmony and to learn to be kind to myself. Because only then, by the way, I'm able to be kind to other people as well, if I'm kind to myself.
Wow. I have several questions. I'm thinking which one I'm going to ask first, but I think just following up from what you shared about your inner meaning, and one of them is to find inner peace, you said, right? From my perspective, to find is like something like I'm here, I'm trying to find something. But if it's an inner meaning, it's something part of your inner framework, and it's about finding inner peace. Shouldn't it be already there?
That's a very good point. It is there.
It is like there. creating inner peace instead of finding. But I mean, I'm sorry to say this because it's not my place, because it's your. I'm just thinking from my perspective. Yeah,
no, I 100% agree. Inner peace is there. It's there. It's only that it's in the basement of our psyche, so to speak. It's locked away, and we don't, because of education, because of culture, we are made believe you have to work hard. You have to develop every year in business, for instance, make more money, bigger. We're so much in this hamster wheel or rat race, so to speak, that we completely forgot that there is inner peace. I give you a personal example, if I may, because this is happening to me in the last 2 or 3 years. I had to learn, and I really had to learn to allow myself to, for instance, take not only a nap in the afternoon every day and when, but what I'm doing nowadays very often is I get up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, work for 2 or 3 hours, and go back for another nap for 1 or 2 hours in the morning. And I had to learn to allow this to myself without feeling guilty, because I was so much programmed. Dieter, this is a waste of time. You have to work hard. You have to do this, do that. No, easy, slow down. The inner peace is here. It's just hidden away below all the mud of the social pressure at the end of the day, which makes us believe if you don't do anything, you're going to be a failure. You will not be successful.
I see. Okay. I understand from your explanation now. I have a better understanding on why you choose the word "find." Thank you for explaining that. And for most people, from your experience as well, why do you think a lot of people find it difficult to find whether they're inner meaning, or also their outer purpose as well?
That's actually very simple to explain,
Uh-huh.
because there's one, and I touched it before. Let me explain a little bit more detailed. Because there's one thing we never learn, which is about ourselves. What fears, okay, no, let me put it this way. People come to me and say, Dieter, can you help me to find my purpose? Yes. Okay, how do we start? And I always say, we don't start with defining a purpose. Why not? Because first we have to go into the subconscious. We have to see what fears, what blocks, what blind spots do you have, what emotional woundings from your childhood do you have. Uh,
Mm.
so I'm not a therapist, just to be very clear, but I help people to, for instance, to give an example, to find out what were your emotional woundings in your childhood. Because let's face it, we all, and I really mean we all, experienced emotional woundings in our childhood. For instance, father was saying, why don't you know this? Why don't you know that? Your brother, your sister, your age know this. Or mom is saying you always have to be nice to other people because otherwise they will leave you alone. Or my grandmother is dying, or I'm in a war zone, or I'm getting bullied at school. We all experience emotional woundings, small, big, one time, ongoing. And then we create a belief about ourselves. I mean, personal example, in my case, my brother, who was 5 years younger than me, has passed away already. So for the first 5 years of my life, I was in the center of attention of my mother, paradise. Then my brother was born 5 years afterwards. Competition, small, noisy, and dirty. And still the attention of my mother went from me to my brother. Of course, as a 5 years old, I didn't understand that this is necessary. I thought, I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable enough. And
Mm.
then we create a belief about ourselves. And the belief is usually something around, I'm not good enough. And then we still, as a child, subconsciously, we create a
Uh-huh.
strategy to overcome this, to make sure this wounding doesn't happen again. And the strategy can be to be a people pleaser, to try to be successful in business, in sports, or in politics, to be bullying, to withdraw, all kind of different strategies. And we have this behavior subconsciously our whole life, and also in relationships, by the way. And
Mm.
this is the belief I'm not good enough, and the fear other people are going to see it, that so many people have difficulties to have this creativity and inner strength to say, this is what I really would like to be in my life or to do in my life. This is my real purpose.
Mm.
Does it make
And
sense?
yes, yes, perfectly. And how would you facilitate someone to identify those, wounds, especially when it goes back to
Uh,
okay, to the childhood?
okay, I give you a shocking answer, or actually for two things, I give you a shocking answer. I start with the more shocking one first. Sometimes people ask me, Dieter, how long does it take to define my meaning? Must be very difficult. And I always tell them 5 to 10 minutes. And they say, what? Are you kidding? And I say, well, the implementation is a different story, but the definition is 5 to 10 minutes because, again, deep down, we know it. Deep down, we know it. It's simply
Mm.
that we do not listen to it because of the reasons I was giving before. And to
Mm.
the original question about, like, with this woundings, 45 minutes. And I'm doing this with therapists. Don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm pretending to be a clown. I mean, therapists sometimes tell me, seriously? Of course, they're afraid I get them out of their job. But it is much easier than we are made believe. It is much easier than we're made believe. Okay, there's one condition. I have to say this as well, that people are more or less prepared to peel the onion, as I call it, to go deeper. So my
Mm.
job, if a client comes, is the first, sometimes it's half an hour. I just have to create an atmosphere of trust, and that they understand, that they feel it's going to be beneficial for me. It's even going to be fun in a way. I'm trying to use a lot of fun in there. And then it takes maximum 45 minutes. And again, they say, oh, shoot, I knew it all the time, but I've never seen it so clearly, and I've not seen what I can do about it.
Mm. Okay.
And then I ask them, okay, now let's see, what is your real meaning? And this goes like this, very, very simple. once they have been peeling the onion, which might be a little bit with tears sometimes, but also tears of relaxation, so to speak, to get rid of the burden. And then all of a sudden say, yeah, well, I always want to do this. Let me just give you one more example about this. It happens so often that women, mothers, at the age, let's say 45 or so, the kids have been leaving the house. And then very often women, especially in cities, are saying, what's next in my life? And then I help them to redefine their purpose. Because at the end, in 90%, they're saying, I always knew it. It was just interrupted for 20 years because they were a mother. So it's inside ourselves. 45 minutes plus 10 minutes, so 1 hour. Implementation is a different story.
Yeah. And what's the second answer? You said like that's the more shocking answer. The second one would be what?
No. The first one was about how long does it take to define the meaning. So 5 to 10 minutes. But how long does it take to become aware of your problem and see what you can do about it? This takes 45 minutes.
Okay. And then you said like to live that is a different story, because discovering and living, although they're connected, but they are two different processes as well, right? And again, from your experience as well, what would it take to be able to live that purpose in a very consistent way? And what are the challenges that usually come up?
Okay. There are, again, two aspects to it. The first one is, what is the purpose itself? As I was saying earlier, we are made believe very often that the purpose must be something big, something earth-shattering. And I do not agree with this at all anymore. Example, Mother Teresa. I mean, I'm always asking people, what was the marketing plan of Mother Teresa? And then they're saying, did she have one? No, of course not. What was the budget of Mother Teresa? Probably none at the beginning. Was she planning to become world famous? At the beginning, for sure not. Was she planning to get the Peace Nobel Prize? At the beginning, for sure not. What was she doing? She was walking around in Calcutta and holding the hands of people who were literally laying on the street and about to pass away, so they are not alone in the last hours. So I think meaningful, fulfilling, and for me the word is fulfilling is the important thing here. Fulfilling purpose is to do something small, and once or twice a year I do lectures at universities, and it's always the same story. Students get very excited about the topic of purpose. Yes, I will do this, I will do that, I will change the whole world, I will make the world a better place. And then I'm always interrupting them and asking them, excellent, but what is the name of your neighbor? I don't know, but they will make the world a better place. I will slow down. What is the name of your neighbor? We are so in this, it has to be big. I personally came to the conclusion the last 10 years or so, for me, the real outer purpose, similar to my inner meaning, which is kindness. Because if I don't have the mindset, in other words, for me, outer purpose nowadays is a mindset. It's not even a project anymore. Don't get me wrong. It's okay to work for an NGO or to write a book or whatever it is. But if I don't have the proper mindset, kindness, based on not expecting too much in return, this thing, then all the projects will not work. Or they might work temporarily, but they will not give lasting fulfillment. So for me, it is nowadays a mindset, an attitude, kindness. Even old lady tries to cross the street and she has heavy bags, I help her. I will do the best within my possibilities to help someone who needs it. But I'm not there with a big flag and saying, I want to get rid of starving children. If I can contribute, yes, but small. Keep it small. Kindness for me.
So it's like doing good deeds in a selfless way.
As much as possible. I mean, we always want to get some feedback, no question about this. But yes, yeah.
How would you advise or suggest people, especially nowadays with all the social media and everything, where everybody is basically trying to show themselves. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing, because it depends. We don't know what's in people's heart, what's their intention.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that as a negative thing, but it can be negative. And there's this, at least for me, I'm being honest with you. Like, even doing what I do, I remind myself all the time that I'm doing this. What I do now, I need to do this selflessly. For me, I'm as a religious person, I do this because this is one of my ways to get closer to God. Um, and
Beautiful, beautiful.
and but our ego from time to time, it's gonna go ups and downs, right? So sometimes that ego is like, it's okay, it's you're important, and not in a egocentric, but in an egoistic that sometimes comes up, right?
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and
Okay,
and
there's a
with
development.
social media nowadays, it becomes even more challenging. So how would you advise
There's
a
a
person?
development. It's getting a little bit better, but at the end of the day, most people, at least the ones who come to me, and this is a sad thing, I have to say, because something went wrong in their lives. Most of the time, we need some disaster in our life, like I don't know, an accident or a divorce or getting fired or whatever before at a certain age. I barely have had or have clients less than 40 years of age, because I'm always saying in the first 20 years, like let's say from 20 to 40, we are so much in the society's grip that we have to build up something, and we even with the best intentions. For me, by the way, the really sad thing is that young people, I mean, you've been with Isaac as well. When you talk to them, younger than 30, they're saying, yes, the make peace and all this stuff. Then they get married or they have kids, and all of a sudden, most of them become very pragmatic, because there's the social pressure to, understandably, to do the best for the children or for the child. So they get very pragmatic. So all of a sudden, we're adapting to the mainstream, or most of us do, until something really goes wrong. And then people are coming and saying, this can't be everything to life. There must be something else to life. So, because at the end of the day, to boil it down to one point, it means that we have to learn to develop this inner strength, to swim a little bit against the mainstream and be okay with it. And the challenge for this is that you were saying a moment ago something like we cannot look into the heart of people. I don't subscribe to this. I think at the end of the day, we are all looking for the same thing, which is love. To be loved, ideally, like we hopefully have been loved by our mothers, which would be unconditional love. But the thing is following, every once a year on the 14th of February at the Valentine's Day, I'm always doing an anti-Valentine's Day event, and it's always fully packed. And there are always people who come and say to me, Dieter, I don't find anyone who loves me. And then I'm always asking them, do you love yourself? And in 99% of the cases, the answer is silence, not even no, silence. And then I'm saying, how can you expect that someone is loving you if you don't even love yourself? Now, what does it mean for what you just were saying? We have to learn, in my philosophy, we have to learn to give as much as love, or whatever you want to call it, to ourselves, and to become less dependent on getting it from the outside world. We all need love at the end of the day. We all need love, but we try to compensate it with relationships, with material stuff, with the car, with the house, with success. This is why I don't like the term success. Because it's material. We have to learn to give it as much as possible to ourselves. And again, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier than we are made believe. It's just we never learned it. So the process is to help people to see, not only to see, to on a daily basis, so to speak, to give validation, recognition, love, whatever term you want to use, for themselves as much as possible. And therefore, they develop inner peace, inner calm, inner strength, and therefore they are better prepared to deal with whatever the universe is putting on our doorsteps, and also to be able to say, okay, I have to swim a little bit against mainstream, but I'm fine.
And that's the challenge. Sometimes, at least, I'm looking at from my own perspective, from my clients' perspective as well, from my client experiences. I'm sorry, not perspective, clients' experiences. For them, and for me, sometimes I still find it sometimes challenging. Again, like I said, I need to remind myself that you know, yeah, it's okay. Like, and how would you like that? It's okay. But how can we maintain that it's okay feeling?
Okay, in the smallest possible ways. Again, let me give you the personal example with kindness. For instance, especially if I do something with groups, I'm always asking people, how many of you or who of you is brushing his or her teeth at least once a day? And of course, all the hands go up. And then I'm asking, how many of you are brushing his or her soul at least once a day? And very often, very often, some people even ask, what do you mean? And I'm saying, as we're automatically, more or less, once or twice a day are brushing our teeth, we have to brush our soul. And what does it mean? Every day, ideally. And what does it mean? It means, for instance, for me, I sit down in the evening, and it's not meditation necessarily. It's just 2 minutes sitting down, either in complete silence, letting everything sink in. And this is already very difficult for most people, even 1 minute of silence. Or sometimes I'm just thinking back, where have I been kind today? And then pat my shoulder and create this feeling, well done. I'm proud of you, Dieter. It's the smallest things. Again, we are made believe it must be something big. No, I don't subscribe to this. It's the small things. But the thing is, we have to take the time, not find the time, because we'll never find it. We have to take the time to reflect, to slow down, silence, or just reviewing the day and saying, because let's face it, usually during the day we have so many difficult things, and there's always saying we usually only see the holes in the cheese, and we don't see the cheese. We only see what went wrong. We don't see what is nice. So slow down, sit down, reflect, and see, well, not so bad, not so bad. And it's the tiny things. It's the tiny little things, and they will add up so quickly if we are only aware of it. Again, this is not what mainstream is telling us. We are told if there is an issue, plan and go from A to B and work hard. No, easy.
This goes back to meaning again. I personally believe that we human beings, and I read this somewhere, like this term that I really like, human beings is, we are a meaning-making machine. We always, whether consciously or subconsciously, we always give meaning to whatever, from moment to moment, to what's happening in our life. But is there a difference between giving meaning to a particular moment, to an event that happened, and having a meaningful life? Do you see those as two different things, or are they connected in one way or another?
Well, they're, in my opinion, definitely connected to one another. I'm not so sure. I have to think about this. If there's a different, I mean, if they're connected, they might be slightly different. But for me, for instance, you might say what's bubbling up now emotionally. I have the big picture, which is, for instance, to be kind, in the moment, to learn to be more aware of the moment. Because very often we don't see the things where I could be kind, for instance. I mean, the classical examples are if I want to buy a specific car and all of a sudden I see only this type of car on the streets. They always have been there, but my awareness wasn't there. Or women, when they become pregnant, all of a sudden we only see pregnant women around us. It's always there. So for me, it is to develop this awareness, because from a spiritual philosophical perspective, I really believe that everything is a message. Everything is a message. There are no coincidences and everything. We just don't see it. So the short term, the long term might be, for me, being kind, and then helping people to find their purpose. The immediate in the moment is to be, as I was saying earlier, to be as much in the moment, to be aware as much as possible, without judging of this very moment. So it's connected. It's not necessarily the same, to answer your question.
And so how would you define a meaningful life from your perspective?
Okay. I was saying earlier that it takes 5 to 10 minutes to answer the question of your meaning. It's basically one question you have to answer. And I'll give you the question because this is the answer to your question now as well. The question is the following. And there are two versions, by the way. I have to mention this as well. There's the old version and there's the new version. The old version is known as the tombstone question, which is one day when you're dead, what do you want that is written on your tombstone? What have you achieved to say it has been a successful life? I don't subscribe to this. For me, the simple question to answer and also to come to your question is, one day when you will be looking back in your life, what feelings will you have to say, yes, it has been a fulfilled life? What feelings will you have to say, yes, it has been a fulfilled life? It's nothing about success in the outside world. It's nothing about achievement in my philosophy. Yeah? So this is the feelings. And for a lot of us, and especially men, it's difficult to listen to our feelings, because in most cultures, especially in the European culture, we are told a boy doesn't cry, for instance. So it's difficult for men. But this is the point. Listen to your feelings. There was a beautiful advertising in Spain for many years for a German car company, which was, be reasonable, follow your feelings. Which sounds like a contradiction, but that's the point. So again, to come to your question, what feelings do you want to have to say it has been a fulfilling, not successful, a fulfilling life? This is the criteria. For me, as I was saying a number of times now, it is inner peace, it's inner calm, inner strength. But everyone has to find his or her own version.
And how would one find that?
I either do it with clients within 15 minutes, because they know.
They know that you mentioned earlier, or
Yeah, I just ask them, for instance, to close their eyes or to relax. We do a little bit of body scan to relax, and then allow it to come up. It doesn't work all the time. I also have to admit this. And in the tough cases, I'm telling them, okay, go home now, take a hot bath, a foam bath, candlelight maybe, or maybe even some music in the background, and allow yourself to cry. Again, difficult for men. Allow yourself to cry, because tears are the cleansing of the soul. And again, it might not go right away, but sooner or later, this answer will come up from inside of what is your real meaning or purpose, because it is there. We only have to allow it to come up. So I would say in 80% of my work with clients, it comes up more or less immediately, and they say, I always knew it. Or in the other 20%, maybe take a walk in nature or take a hot bath. It will come up extremely quickly.
I would like to go back a little bit, Dieter, on what you said earlier about emotional wounds, especially from our childhood, because oftentimes it affects the beliefs that we have today, and some of them can be limiting.
Not only oftentimes, Ari, all the time.
Well, I mean, if it wounds, then yes, you're right. I'm sorry, you're right. What happened in our childhood? If there are wounds, then it also becomes a limiting belief. Now, you mentioned earlier from your own childhood as well, and then you become aware of it, right? And then from your perspective as an adult, now you can see, oh, that's actually you can see the logic that it's actually reasonable. It's okay for that to happen. It's normal.
Mm.
However, for you to be able to, it took like a process for that to, for the meaning to change, right? So
Yeah.
to identify the wounds, what was it that happened in the past? It's one thing, but
Yeah.
just by knowing or identifying, oh, this was one of the main wounds, let's say. Just
Yeah.
by identifying, it doesn't mean that suddenly like it's healed now. You still need to do
Right.
something,
Okay.
right? So
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
how would you help someone to actually once
Yeah.
identify the wounds and then to process it?
Yeah. It's two steps. Uh,
Mhm.
the first step, and this now when I'm telling you in abstract terms, it doesn't have the real emotional impact as it has if you do it with someone one to one, so to speak. So, for instance, the
Mhm.
process is he or she defines the wound, he or she defines the belief, he or she defines the strategy, which was developed subconsciously. Then I ask them to write down the disadvantages of this strategy. So, for instance, if I'm a people pleaser, I'm always misused emotionally from other people, and so on and so on. And then, and this is the first of the two steps now, and it's unusual, I ask people, what are the advantages of your core wound? What did you learn? What did you develop? What have you been able to achieve because of your core wound? Let me give you, again, a personal example. I had this core wound I was telling about my brother, and my strategy was people pleaser. I developed a helper syndrome. I thought I need to be good to others first before they're good to me. Yeah, so people pleaser. My mother had this system. Every Wednesday evening, she was inviting a circle of 5 friends to discuss about philosophy and psychology. At the age of 10, I started to help her to prepare the table, not because I was interested in psychology, philosophy at the age, but I hoped that she was saying, oh, you're a good boy, I love you, you're nice, you're helping me. At the age of 12 or so, I started to listen in these conversations. Again, not because I was interested, but it was nice when the adults were saying, oh, wow, only 12 years and already interested in psychology. Good boy, good boy. At the age of 14, 15, I started to participate in these conversations. At the age of 17, 18, I had a knowledge about psychology, philosophy you would never, ever have at this age. But it was only because I wanted to get attention, because I wanted to overcome my core wound. I had a client from Italy. Her father was a diplomat. Every 3 years, they had to move to a different country. She made friends in kindergarten. Next country, primary school, new friends. Next country, high school, new friends. One of her core wounds was she doesn't feel rooted anywhere. But nowadays, she's speaking 5 languages fluently. Every coin got 2 sides. So what I do is, as the first of the 2 steps, is I help people to see what are the positive sides, and we don't see it. As I was saying before, with the holes in the cheese, we don't see it usually. And I would say 2/3 of the people start crying at this point. They're saying, wow, I never thought about this. I never thought about this. And then comes the second step.
Yeah.
Is the question I was saying before. Based on this, wow, what is your real purpose? Your inner meaning in this case. They answer the question. And because this is Frankl, because Frankl was always saying, life will be much easier if you know where to go. And if on a side step, so to speak, I'm not sure if you know this, but Frankl and Freud at the beginning have been working together. There was the Viennese school, Adler, Frankl, and Freud, and they separated because Frankl was always saying what Freud is doing in a very positive way is to help people to deal with the issues from the past. And that's necessary, Frankl was always saying. But it will be much easier to deal with the past if you know where you really want to go in your life. If you have your why, your what for. So this is why they split. And this is the second step I was just saying with this question. first to make them aware it's not only holes in the cheese, it's also cheese, and then where do you really want to go? And this is like a car or a plane, which is carrying them forward, which makes it easy in the implementation.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. So one is focusing on the past, because things that needs to be taken care of that happened in the past that wasn't really taken care of. But at the same time, even though you've taken care of what happened in the past, you've healed, it would be way much better for us if we also know where we want to go.
Exactly. Right? Otherwise, we always fall back to the old thing. I mean, if someone is saying, I want to get rid of my fear of being alone, they always will fall back to this. They always will, unless you help them to find a positive vision, a purpose, meaning, whatever label you want to put on it. Then there still is the danger, and they still might be falling back every then and when. But it will be easy to get out of the swamp again, because they have this horse of purpose, which is helping them to get out of this rabbit hole.
Between the outer purpose and that inner meaning, which one do you think is more challenging to live and stay consistent?
To live? Well, I think this depends a little bit on where one is in his or her life. The older we get, being 69, I'm allowed to say that, the more the inner meaning is important and the outer stuff is less important. So like the attitude thing will be more prevailing, so to speak. The younger you are, we are still more in the mainstream mindset, and it will be more challenging to do it, to find my way. I'm sometimes saying, but this doesn't work with the young generation, to follow the old Frank Sinatra song, I did it my way. But let's face it, we're still younger. We're still in this mainstream thinking, and so it will be more difficult. But the old, and will be more with the outside purpose, because we think we have to be efficient. We think we have to get recognition and stuff like this, and we have whatever the rules we accept from the society. The older we get, the more we say, I don't care. Again, if I may, I give you a personal example. I gave up almost 100% to set myself goals. I don't set goals anymore. I used to be crazy. When I was 30, 35, I had tons of Excel files. Where did I make a keynote? Where did I make a speech? Where did I have a seminar? How many people were there? And everything was analyzed. How do I want to improve next year? What are my goals? No, I don't do it anymore. I go with the flow. As long as I'm able to be kind to myself and to the outside world, whatever comes, comes.
What made you transition into that?
Actually, it was at the end of the day, to make a long story short, it was a client of mine who used to be a very famous mountain climber. And it's a story, I mean, I heard the story from himself, but it's a story which is quite known, actually, maybe not from him, and because he was when he came to me, he was almost 70 years old, and he wasn't able to climb mountains anymore. And he told me, ever since I'm not able to climb mountains anymore, but just to walk and see the mountains, I can see the flowers along the way. So we are so goal-oriented. I want to climb this mountain, and then the next mountain, and then the next mountain. We don't see the flowers here. And sometimes I'm shocking people when I say this, but I really had some key events in my life. Where in the backyard here where I'm living, there is an ant hill. And sometimes I'm just sitting there and watching the ants for whatever time it is. Completely useless, you might say, but beautiful. That's life, that's nature. So it doesn't have to be anything big. I don't need to achieve goals anymore to feel fulfillment. I don't need to achieve goals to feel fulfillment, because for me, success and happiness are not what I'm after for anymore. It is fulfillment. success and happiness are part of it. You might say, yes, I agree on
Yeah.
this. And I don't need to achieve goals for this.
So, not to say that the goals or the achieving something is not important, but your fulfillment, it doesn't depend on it. Is that correct?
Exactly. And this was a big change in my life, a turning point. Yeah.
And uh, uh, is it okay for me? I mean, to ask this, and if you don't mind, I believe we always grow as a person, or at least we should. Uh, and to grow, one of the ways that we grow is through challenges and facing challenges. Because behind every challenge that we encounter, there's always an opportunity to grow, one way or another. And nowadays, in your age, what are the main challenges, or what are the main fears that you still
Okay.
have?
Okay. First of all, I'm not convinced about the term growing. I'm not sure that let me explain what I mean.
Yeah.
I think I'm always, well, sometimes people come and say, Dieter, I have a problem. And I always interrupt them and say, you don't have a problem. You have unused potential. And then say, yeah, that's a bloody word game. I say, it's not a word game, because if I say I have a problem, I get tense because I believe I have to overcome it. So I'm always telling, while I'm saying it's unused potential, I relax, and it's much more likely and easier to do something. So I'm always saying to everyone, you are perfect the way you are. You still can develop further. You're perfect the way you are. You still can, not must. You still can develop further. So, and that's what we're saying at the beginning of our conversation. If someone feels I'm fine and I'm really fine, there is no need for me neither to develop nor to grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if then it's development out of curiosity. And by the way, if we have inner peace, curiosity will be much bigger. But I will not depend on the result. And this comes to the second part of your question. My biggest challenge, so to speak, is I'm still in this, sometimes having subconscious expectations of how a situation should be, or how a person should react or not react. I still can get angry, to give you a very simple example, when I'm going on the escalator in the subway, and there are people in front of me, and we come to the top, and they stop immediately, and they don't care that someone is behind. It still makes me angry, because I have the expectation that people think about others, especially about me. So my challenge is that I'm still sometimes catching myself by having wrong expectations. And I mean, people cannot see it now when we're talking, but to give you a picture for this, imagine a higher level of expectations and a lower level of reality. The difference is called frustration. Okay, so the question is, how can I reduce or minimize the frustration? And I have two options. I can reduce my expectations, or I can change reality. Now, let me ask you, what do most people do in their lives? Reduce expectations or change reality? Just think about partnerships. Trying to change the other person, we're trying to change a reality. It only works, in my humble opinion, if we learn to reduce expectations. And this is my major challenge, to reduce, because I still have it every then and when, that I'm catching myself saying, come on, Dieter, take it easy.
But do you think it's different when it comes expectations? Because from your example, that's expectations about how others should behave or should react. So it's expectations toward your externals.
No. The thing is how I react to external stuff. One of the most famous sentences from Viktor Frankl was, the last freedom you have in your life is how you react to a given situation. The last freedom you have is how you react to a given situation, with this or similar words. So it's a trigger that someone is stopping at the escalator, or so, but it's my reaction. So I must not be hung up by them being angry about this person or getting aggressive even. I have to reflect and say, hey, Dieter, come on, take it easy. Why does it trigger you? And I know why it triggers me, because it's, again, from childhood, but it's a trigger. And this is what's happening so often. A lot of people take things too personal. And what I also learned is, I'm a big fan, you might say, of the old Stoic philosophy, the old Greek Stoic philosophy. And 80-90% of the things, especially the ones outside, we cannot influence. And this is one of the problems with goal setting. I mean, there might be a war all of a sudden. There might be a volcano eruption like in Indonesia right now, I believe. There might be COVID or whatever. I cannot influence to achieve the goals. So the only thing I can influence, I can develop further, is myself. And here it starts. I get a trigger. I sit in the evening, I reflect, why did I get triggered? I laugh about myself and I say, okay, next time maybe you will not react like this.
Peter, is there any, besides Viktor Frankl's books, of course, is there any books that you recommend, like books that have a significant impact or like important insights for you?
Yeah, there's one book which really also influenced me in a very positive way, which is called Tuesdays with Morrie.
Tuesdays with Morrie, yeah.
Yeah, you know it. You've heard about it.
Yeah, I read that. Yeah, it's a beautiful book. Yeah. Okay.
It absolutely is, and it's a true story. Actually, it's a true story. I would suggest to read the book and not to watch the movie, because they made a movie out of it afterwards as well. But as always, the movies are shorter and more superficial. So this very much influenced me. Yeah, and then everything about Stoicism as well. If people want to categorize me, I'm always saying I'm a mixture of Taoist and Buddhist thoughts. I'm not a Buddhist or Taoist myself, but I like the Taoist philosophy, going with the flow. Like the water doesn't have, I mean, the water goes to the ocean anyway. Yeah, but it doesn't say I want to go left, I want to go right. It goes with the flow. So I like this philosophy. So everything about, in terms of books, about, and also, because I was giving the example about the wave and the ocean, I'm very much both into non-duality as well as into quantum mechanics. As I was saying before, my mother was philosophy, but she was studying physics, and my father as well. So at an early age, I was confronted with physics, and later on with quantum mechanics. And so how real is reality, for instance? I mean, and again, there's this other Austrian, Fritjof Capra, who in the 70s, and that's another book, by the way, who wrote a book called The Tao of Physics. And he's a professor of physics at Berkeley, California. So he's not necessarily spiritual. Well, he is, but not a philosopher. And he was writing in this book, The Tao of Physics. Nowadays, in physics, we come to the same conclusion as the Buddhists had 2,500 years ago, which is, how real is reality? Yeah, and in quantum mechanics, they're saying, in a way, we are creating reality ourselves, and it's our imagination. There's no proof that it's not a matrix or it's a movie or whatever. So, long story short, this book's about Tuesday with Morrie, and then the Tao of Physics. Was I saying another one? Yeah, and books in general about Stoicism and Taoism.
I always find it like when I started to learn quantum physics, I cannot help to think and to relate it with philosophy.
Absolutely.
Because it's, for me, it's very much connected.
Ali, even more than this, in the 50s, last century, when my parents were studying physics, physics was a sub-department of the Faculty of Philosophy.
Really?
Yeah, and this was the case last century, up to the second half of the century, in all countries in Europe, that physics, chemistry, and all these things were sub compartments of the Faculty of Philosophy. Both my parents had a PhD in philosophy.
I did not know that, and that is
Yeah.
wow.
Because the thing was, the philosophers have always been here on this planet, yeah. But then,
Hmm.
in the 17th, 18th century, approximately, they started to try to prove certain things, and only then physics became an accepted or recognized part of philosophy. Later on, the philosophers said no more with this with these guys, so they separated, so to speak. But it was coming from philosophy.
Now that you've explained it that way, it makes so much sense because it's
Mhm.
about proving the philosophy itself. What they're yeah,
And
yeah.
now it's maybe coming back. Now it's maybe coming
Hmm.
back because now in physics, at least, or in quantum mechanics, as you were saying, they're saying, "Hang on, what is the field of probability? What is consciousness?" And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, coming back to the roots, so to speak.
Hmm.
The challenge here is Ari, that with our limited mind, so to speak, and with our logic-oriented mind, it's difficult to prove anything which is philosophical. I mean, even quantum mechanics is the example I'm always giving is in Brussels, in Belgium, we have this big model of an atom, okay, with this.
Mhm.
And since 100 years, we know it doesn't look like this, but we're still teaching in school that an atom looks like this, like it is the model in Brussels. It's so difficult for long story short, with other words, maybe, and this is the reason why I'm interested in these areas, maybe we are at the same stage as some 400 or 500 years ago, until when people were thinking the earth is flat and realized the earth is round. Maybe we are on the same area now, same situation, that we're saying, okay, maybe it's not just our mind and it's not just our limited logic. Maybe there is something oceanic, to use my picture.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Ah, Peter, thank you so much. But if you don't mind, I have one more question I wanna ask you.
Sure,
And
sure.
I always ask this to every guest as well.
Okay.
I've been asking you some questions, and I've been gaining so much knowledge, insights, and I thank you so much for that. But is there any question that you think uh, I should have asked, but I haven't asked yet? Do you think it's like an important thing for you to share as well, but I haven't asked it?
uh, well, maybe it's not only a question you should have asked, but also a question which I could have asked back to you, which is, what is your takeaway from our conversation? And it doesn't have to be something new. Don't get me wrong. It's maybe a confirmation of something you've known. But what is your takeaway from our conversation?
Okay, interesting. I've never been asked before in this
Yeah,
one.
no, that's the point. That's the point. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, the facility usually is asking questions and so on and so on.
Mhm.
But it's also interesting because I'm also always saying I'm learning as well
Yeah.
in such kind of conversation. So it would be interesting for me. What's your takeaway?
Okay. One, to take from the very last part of your explanation, like when you said that science or physics, chemistry used to be under faculty of philosophy.
Philosophy.
For me, it confirms again one of the things that I've heard. I forgot who said it, but in this universe, there is no like separate knowledge. Actually, everything is like it's human being. Like we are the one who segregated this, like saying that this is math, this is chemistry, this is economy. But
Uh,
in actuality, it's just the knowledge about life in the universe. So
exactly.
so that it reminds me and it confirms me that how things can um, how things not just can but how things are connected, but it's just how we view things that makes it that can make it seem like they're separated.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's definitely one of the main takeaways because the one that is closest from what you just explained to me, but
Yeah.
also about the inner meaning and the outer purpose. I think it's also very very insightful as well, and how can how to how can we identify that emotional wounds, especially all the way from our childhood, and like you said, most of them, if not all, has something to do with our childhood,
Absolutely.
and not just to identify, but to do something about that afterwards. The question that you ask, to how to process this, to actually utilize this as well. So these are really, really like important things that personally, again, I thank you so much for sharing that. So personally, it really helped me. It made me think. It made me reflect. And like you said, you cannot just try to find the time, but you need to take the time to make the time to reflect. I personally have experienced how beneficial it is to regularly make the time to reflect. It makes me, it gets me to know myself more. And as a person, we are always evolving, so it's important to always reflect. So we always know like our latest version anyway. So yeah, that's at least several out of so many takeaways.
Excellent. Glad to hear. Glad to hear. Great. Great.
Uh, but I still have that question for you though. Is there anything that I should ask, that things that you think is important to share, but you haven't shared because maybe I haven't asked it yet?
No, frankly, I really think your questions were quite holistic, covering everything, which I consider important.
Well, in that case,
it's really the curiosity of for me, it was really the curiosity of what is your takeaway?
Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, let me ask another question then. If you don't think.
Okay.
I said it's the last one, but since you said you have
the very last one now. Yeah.
the last.
Okay.
So if you think of what's your final message for someone who wants to find their purpose, and to live a meaningful and fulfilling life, and really I don't know where to start.
Okay.
What would be your suggestion?
In Greece, in the Oracle of Delphi, at the entrance there's this sentence: "Know yourself." Know thyself. This is what is really missing in our societies. As I was saying at the beginning, we learn about the outside stuff, but we don't learn about the inside stuff. Learn about yourself and do it under the following motto: you are more than you think. Under the following motto or mantra, headline. And the mantra, the headline is: you are more than you think you are. Get to know yourself better, because you are more than you think you are. But the important thing is get to know yourself. Not just the capitals of the world. Get to know your beautiful, positive feelings. And as a result, learn to love yourself more, because you are more than you think you are.
Dieter, thank you so very, very much for sharing that. That's beautiful.
My pleasure.
It really warms my heart with listening to you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I really
Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure and my honor to have you here. And I'm very sure everyone who's listening is feeling the same, and I believe they do. And again, thank you for taking your time. I'm very, very grateful that you finally find this time to have this conversation. And I hope this won't be the last time as well.
I sure hope not. It would be a real pleasure if we can stay in touch one way or the other, Ali. Definitely.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Take care. And for everyone who's watching or who's listening as well, I hope you don't just listen, but you really like what Dieter asked me. So you make sure you get your takeaways as well, and you utilize whatever it is that you learn from this conversation. And with that, I thank you as well for listening, for watching this, and see you in the next episode. Take care, everyone. Hello.